let's try reading a little bit about magic and religion. We have 3 in here. Lyrium. More than half the wealth of Orzammar comes from a single, extremely rare substance, Lyrium. The Chatri believes it to be the waters of the Fade, mentioned in the Canticle of Thrinodes, the very stuff of creation itself, from whence the Maker fashioned the world. Only a handful of mining caste families hazard extracting the ore, finding veins in the stone quite literally by ear, for in its raw form, Lyrium sings, and the discerning can hear the sound even through solid rock. Even though dwarves have a natural resistance, raw Lyrium is dangerous for all but the most experienced of the mining caste to handle. Even for dwarves, exposure to the unprocessed mineral can cause deafness or memory loss. For humans and elves, direct contact with Lyrium ore produces nausea, blistering of the skin, and dementia. Mages cannot even approach and process Lyrium. Doing so is invariably fatal. Despite its dangers, Lyrium is the single most valuable mineral currently known. In the Tevinter Imperium, it has been known to command a higher price than diamonds. The dwarves sell very little of the processed mineral to the surface, giving the greater portion of what they mine to their own smiths, who use it in the forging of all truly superior dwarven weapons and armor. What processed Lyrium is sold on the surface goes only to the Chantry, who strictly control the supply. From the Chantry, it is dispensed both to the Templars, who can make use of it in tracking and fighting Malficarium, and to the Circle. In the hands of the Circle, Lyrium reaches its fullest potential. Their Formari craftsmen transform it into an array of useful items, from the practical, such as magically hardened stone for construction, to the legendary silver armor of King Colin HOD. When mixed into liquid and ingested, Lyrium allows mages to enter the Fade fully aware. Unlike all others who reach it only while dreaming, such potions can also be used to aid in the casting of especially taxing spells, for a short time granting a mage far greater power than he normally wields. Lyrium has its costs, however. Prolonged use becomes addictive, and cravings unbearable. Over time, Templars grow disoriented, incapable of distinguishing memory from present or dream from waking. They frequently become paranoid, as their worst memories and nightmares haunt their waking hours. Mages have additionally been known to suffer physical mutation. The Magister Lords of Tevinter Imperium were widely reputed to have been so afflicted by their years of Lyrium use that they could not be recognized by their own kin, nor even as creatures that had once been human. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Ginavinti. And the Tranquil? The Tranquil are the least understood but most visible members of the Circle. Every city of respectable size boasts a Circle Magi shop, and every one of these shops is run by a Tranquil proprietor. The name is a misnomer, for they are not tranquil at all. Rather, they are like inanimate objects that speak. If a table wished to sell you an enchanted penknife, it could pass as one of these people. Their eyes are expressionless, their voices monotone. Incomparable craftsmen they might be, but they are hardly the sort of mages to put ordinary folk at ease. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Ginavinti. Although apprentices do not know the nature of the harrowing, all of them understand its consequences. They either pass and become full mages, or they are never seen again. Those who fear to undertake this rite of passage, or who are determined too weak or unstable, are given the rite of tranquility instead. The actual procedure, like the harrowing, is secret, but the results are just as well known. The rite severs connections to the Fade. The Tranquil therefore do not dream. This removes the greatest danger that threatens a weak or unprepared mage, the potential to attract demons across the veil. But this is the least of the Tranquility's effects. For the absence of dreams brings with it the end of all magical ability, as well as emotion. The Tranquil, ironically, resemble sleepwalkers, never entirely awake nor sleep. They are still part of our circle, however, and some might say they are the most critical part. They have incredible powers of concentration, for it is simply impossible to distract a Tranquil mage, and this makes them capable of becoming craftsmen of such skill that they rival even the adeptness of the dwarves. The Formari, the branch of the circle devoted to item enchantment, is made up exclusively of Tranquil, and is the source of all the wealth that sustains our towers. From On Tranquility and the Role of the Fade in Human Society, by First Enchanter Josephus. And the Veil. I detest the notion that the veil is some manner of invisible curtain that separates the world from the living. I detest the notion that the veil is some sort of manner of invisible curtain that separates the world of the living from the world of the spirits. Whether it be called the Fade or the Beyond is a matter of racial politics that I refuse to indulge in at the moment. There is no this side and that side when it comes to the veil. One cannot think of it as a physical thing, or a barrier, or even a shimmering wall of holy light. Thank you that very much for that image, your perfection. Think of the veil instead as opening one's eyes. Before you opened them, you saw our world as you see it now, static, solid, unchanging. Now that they are open, you see your world as the spirits see it, chaotic, ever-changing, a realm where the imagined and the remembered have as much substance as that which is real, more in fact. A spirit sees everything as defined by will and memory, and this is why they are so very lost when they cross the veil. In our world, imagination has no substance. Objects exist independently of how we remember them or what emotion we associate with them. Mages alone possess the power to change the world with their minds, and perhaps this forms the nature of the demon's attraction to them. Who can say? Regardless, the act of passing through the veil is much more about changing one's perceptions than physical transition. The veil is an idea. It is the act of transition itself. It is only the fact that both living beings and spirits find the transition difficult that gives the veil any credence as a physical barrier at all. From a dissertation of the Fade as a physical manifestation by Marino, senior enchanter of the Minthrathius Circle of Magi, 655 Steel. Let's go back to books and songs. Let's try The Legend of Colin HOD Chapter 2. With the allegiance of Arl Mirrodin, Colin HOD began to raise his rise to greatness. Some of Mirrodin's allies also pledged allegiance, but most thought him foolhardy. A boy commoner was to lead them and become king. Over the years that followed, however, Colin HOD would prove himself worthy of Mirrodin's trust. With each victory, he won over more men to his command, and his reputation as a man of honor spread. Eventually, during his campaign against the lowland Banorn, he met his most infamous friend and companion, the vaunted warrior Lady Shania. Colin HOD married the famously beautiful daughter of Mirrodin, Marine, and his firm belief in the ways of the Chantry became a staple of his court. In a time when the Chantry was still new to the lands and courts following Andraste held the majority of the power at Ferelden, Colin HOD began to solidify the nation as one in line with the other nations around it. This piety eventually won over to Colin HOD those faithful in Ferelden who had been waiting for such a leader. Second, I need something to drink. With Lady Shanna at his side, Colin HOD was unstoppable, and by 542 Exalted, the war for Ferelden had come down to one final battle against the collected forces of Simon, Tyrn of Denerim, and the most potent noblemen in the land. Colin HOD persuaded the Circle of Magi to come to his aid, as well as the Ash Warriors, and in the Battle of the White Valley, he famously defeated Tyrn Simon and united the nation, or Simeon. I think it's Simon, though. We'll go with that. During the battle, Simon nearly killed Colin HOD, but Lady Shanna intervened and took the wound for him, slaying Simon. Colin HOD was crowned king in Denerim that year, with Mirian his queen, or Marin? Marin his queen, but he spent much of the months that followed nursing Lady Shanna back to health. King Colin HOD's Ferelden was peaceful for a time, with the Chantry spreading quickly under the king's guidance. Everywhere the king and queen went, they were surrounded by cheering crowds. The common folk celebrated Colin HOD as one of their own who had achieved the impossible, and trade opened up with many outside lands for the first time in Ferelden's existence. But as with many such golden ages, it was not to last. From The Legend of Colin HOD, by Brother Heron Chantry Scribe, 810 Blessed. Let's try Journey of the Tranquil. Some laugh at me, I no longer mind. Once upon a time, I studied as they did. I learned under the tutelage of an enchanter and attempted to master the art of bending magic to my will, and while I did well enough, I know that I struggled. I saw the way the enchanter looked at me, the sidelong glances of worry and disappointment. While other apprentices were conjuring fire, I could barely light a candle. I was frightened by magic. When I was a boy, my grandmother regaled me with tales of the terrible Flemeth, the Witch of the Wilds. She told me of the Magisters, and how their evil magic infected the world with the Darkspawn. She told me of demons, and how they were drawn to the dreams of those who possessed magic like moths to a flame. She told me all these things because she said the talent ran in our family's blood. And so it ran in mine. All my young life I had dreaded the thought, prayed to the Maker that I was not so cursed, but I knew otherwise. Deep in my heart I knew. When the Templars came to our home, I knew. The Mage's Tower was terrifying, full of secrets and danger. The Templars glared at me, as if I could spring full into an abomination before their very eyes. My enchanter patiently attempted to teach me to marshal my willpower. My only defense should a demon attempt to enslave me, but it was no use. How many nights did I cry myself to sleep in that dark and lonely place? When my harrowing came at last, my final test. Face a demon, they said, or submit to the rite of tranquility. They would sever my connection to the Fade, and thus I would never dream, and no demon could ever touch me. But I would also be unable to do magic, and I would never feel emotion ever again. Facing the demon was certain death, so my choice was easy. It was not so painful. Now I serve in other ways. We Tranquil manage the archives, we run the tower, purchase the supplies, and maintain the accounts. Our condition also allows us to use the magical element Lyrium without ill effects, and thus we are the ones who enchant the magical items. We are the merchants who sell these items to the Circle permits, and the coin from those sales provides the Circle's wealth. Thus we Tranquil are vital. The young and old may stare at me, ill at ease, but they would be worse off without me. They may think me a failure, but there is no horror for me now. I feel no fear of what I am. The shadows are merely shadows, and I am content. Eden the Meek, Tranquil, the Circle of Magi of Starkhaven, the Free Marches. Let's go to Creatures and read about the Arcane Horror. Upon ascending to the second floor of the tower, we were greeted by a gruesome sight. A ragged collection of bones wearing the robes of one of the senior enchanters. I had known her for years, watched her raise countless apprentices, and now she was a mere puppet for some demon. Transcribed from a tale told by a Templar in Antiva City 713 Storm. Demons, of course, have no form in our world. When they enter, either where the veil is particularly thin or through blood magic, summoning, they must take possession of a body. When a pride demon takes control of a corpse of a mage, an arcane horror is born. Although they appear to be little more than bones, these are fierce creatures, possessing not only all the spellcasting abilities of a living mage, but also the capacity to heal and even command other animated corpses. Right back, everyone. I'm going to see how this recording came out and get something to drink. My voice is getting pretty hoarse. Okay, everyone, it's coming out okay. Sounds pretty good. The music might be a little loud, but you can still hear me talking, so this will still work. Let's keep reading. We have a ton of lore to still read through. So let's go to the ghoul. We fought a ghoul? What the Blight does not destroy corrupts. Any creature infected with the Darkspawn taint that does not have the good fortune to die outright becomes a ghoul, a twisted shadow of itself. The name originally comes from men, whether human, dwarven, or elven, who become tainted, usually while being held as a captive food source by the Darkspawn. They would turn cannibal, preying on the other captives, slaves of the will of the Archdemon, driven mad by pain. During a blight, the corruption of the Darkspawn spreads through the wilder areas of Thedas and infects the animals found there. This produces grotesque, enraged bears called bear-scarred, as well as blight wolves. Fortunately, ghouls rarely survive their corruption for long. Let's see, let's read about the golems, because we became one, which is why I guess we learned about them. Once a crucial part of Orzammar's defenses, golems have all but vanished as the secret to their manufacture was lost over 1,000 years ago. What few golems remain are guarded closely by the Shaperit, brought out when the battle with the Darkspawn grows desperate enough to risk their loss. No one now would sell a golem for any price, but in ancient times, dwarves sold many golems to the Magister Lords of Tevinter. They are devastating weapons in war, living siege engines capable of hurling boulders like a catapult, or plowing through enemy lines like an earthquake. Probably the equivalent of the ogres that the Darkspawn possess. The dragons. Oh, okay, so this is going to be broken up to several different parts. We learned about dragonlings here. Newly hatched dragons are roughly the size of a deer and voraciously hungry. They live for a short time in their mother's lair before venturing out on their own. The slender, wingless creatures are born in vast numbers, as only a few ever make it to adulthood. Oh, wow! Like salmon or something like that then, huh? Okay, we have 2 demons left. Let's read about the Desire Demon. In all my studies, I must say that the most intriguing was my interview with the Desire Demon. That creature was willing to speak with me, was a sign that this was no mere monster, mindlessly driven by its nature, but rather a rational being as interested in me as I was in it. It took a form that I would call female, although I had no doubt it could appear otherwise. I wondered if it appeared as it did because I wanted it to, or because I expected it to. She, and indeed I could only think of her as such now, smiled warmly at me and laughed at a musical sound that seemed to thrill my old heart. So frightened was I of this creature's legendary abilities to twist the hearts of men, and so relieved was I when I looked across the table into her dark eyes. This was a fearsome creature of the Fade, but as I spoke with her, I slowly came to realize that this demon was merely misunderstood, as we mages are ourselves. Oh no, what did you do? From the journal of former senior enchanter Malice, once the Circle of Rivian, declared apostate in 920 Dragon. Yep, he got punked by her. Of all the threats from beyond the veil, few are more insidious and deceptively deadly than the Desire Demon. In folklore, such demons are characterized as peddlers of lust, luring their prey into a sexual encounter, only to be slain at the culmination. Oh, it's like a succubus. While a Desire Demon can indeed deal in pleasure, in truth they deal with any manner of desire that humans can possess, wealth, power, and beauty, to name a few. Far more intelligent than the bestial hunger and rage demons, and more ambitious than the demons of sloth, these dark spirits are among the most skilled at tempting mages into possession. Many who serve the whims of a Desire Demon never realize it. They are manipulated by illusions and deceit, if not outright mind control, although these demons are reluctant to resort to such crude measures. Instead, they seem to take great pleasure in corruption. The greater the deceit, the greater their victory. Only demons of pride prove more fearsome opponents when roused. Their abilities to affect the mind allow them to assume disguises and even alter the environment to their purpose, not to mention a great strength and speed which they possess if they should have to resort to more physical means. Most often, a Desire Demon will attempt to bargain its way to freedom. If overpowered, many stories exist that depict mages defeating Desire Demons to the point where a wish can be wrested from them. It should be noted that in such stories the demon almost always gets the upper hand, even when the mage thinks his wish has been granted. Never, ever, ever accept a wish, ever. It will be twisted against you. I should know this. I'm a dungeon master. It's what we're good at. The Pride Demon? Pride Demon. Let me explain what it is to face a Pride Demon, my friends. You may scoff and say that our talent exists only to face mages, but you will encounter demons often. They will be summoned by a Malfikar and bound to do his bidding, and while at times they will be forced into the possession of a host, they will also face you in their true form, a powerful opponent indeed. Do not underestimate it. Pride is powerful and intelligent. When we have encountered one in its true form, its most common attacks are bolts of fire and ice. Fire they will use to burn an opponent, and the magical flame will combust anything you wear regardless of make. Fire they will use to freeze an opponent in place. Be cautious, for they enjoy employing this against warriors in particular. More often than one group of Templars has made the mistake of attempting to overwhelm a Pride Demon and suffer the consequences, believe me. And if you think that having the aid of such other mages will assist you, you are wrong. Pride Demons can render themselves immune to magic for short times, and are adept at dispelling magic that is cast upon you, as much as we Templars are able to disrupt spells. Think on that for a moment, my friends. Be wary of how prideful you become, lest you find too much in common with such a fiend. Transcript of a lecture given by Varen, Templar Commander of Tantervale, 686 Steel. Let's go back to notes, and we'll read about Correspondence and Interruptus. A collection of embarrassing personal communications between the spoiled wealthy and the objects of obsession. Let's see, I think we've read some of these before, so I remember a few of them. A delicate matter. While I am overjoyed at the prospect of having you, an unwelcome guest requires that you excuse yourself by the postern of my estate to avoid a mark upon our reputations. M. My dearest Virginia Trueroyal, regarding Bodice Ripped. Enclosed are 7 silver and my most heartfelt apologies for said bodice. I would blame the cold ocean spray, the loss of my favorite shirt, the bucking of the stallion, or perhaps the strain of maintaining all such elements while sitting for a portrait. But I was certainly not myself. I hope you forgive me and not take it upon yourself to find your own determined way in this world. What? Yours, Sir Rival Grouseman. Interesting. Desire and need. Notice of censure. Templar Drass, your remarks in front of the recruits are only the latest in a series of troubling events. I'm beginning to suspect that you may not be suited to the devotional requirements of training. Perhaps it is time for a personal evaluation of your career path within the Templars. I will schedule some time after the current deployment to discuss options elsewhere in the organization. Attendant Surend, assistant to Knight Commander Gregor. A note is scribbled in the corner. Attendant who? Options. Code for dead end duty on a hedge mage hunt in the Barnorn. Oh, in other words, Attendant Serenad? I guess. Interesting. I don't know what this even portrays to. Extracurricular studies. I have the utmost sympathy for what happened to your charge, but it is beyond the Circle's ability to anticipate every obscure demise that an apprentice might face, especially involving methods outside the already extensive realm of magical study. We simply don't have the room and additional training facilities, and there are concerns about becoming too inclusive that I will not elaborate on. Your request is denied. First, Enchanter Sinclair. If space is your excuse, I will surrender my quarters. If it is about money, I will hire the appropriate people. I will not graduate another student ignorant of weapons that any ditch digger can shove into his ribs. We teach them to append ridiculous glamours on parade arms, but they don't know simple steel. That is criminal. Enchanter Bergen. Notice herewith that the exercise area on the 4th floor shall serve as a permanent berthing for the Templar garrison stationed at the tower. Since facilities that accommodate their particular training requirements are already on hand, they will be assuming an even closer watch over Circle affairs. Enchanter Bergen's optional weapons training is cancelled until further notice. Enchanter Bergen has additionally stepped down from teaching duties. First, Enchanter Sinclair. Wow, okay. So in other words, it sounds like Enchanter Bergen wanted to teach mages how to fight. Sinclair was against it, and in the end was able to cancel it by having Templars move in. Or perhaps the Templars were against it and applied pressure to Sinclair. And promises of pride. Uldred will show us the way. Finally, recognition within the Circle and freedom from the scornful eye of the Templars. We will not be shunned. Be ready. Enchanter Gravid, Libertarian. I have spoken to him directly. His intentions are that we will demand the Templars withdraw. I don't know that I am willing to follow, but I will be present to hear his argument. Enchanter Fonst, Aguatarian. Madness! I doubt blood will be of use to you if it is flowing down from the tower steps. Step away from this folly before it consumes us all. Enchanter Luvian, Loyalist. The call is made. We will stride out of here with pride in our step, regardless of the outcome. This is for the good of the Circle. Uldred will see to it. Libertarian Ronus. Back to Books and Songs, and let us read the Ballad of Islay. The wind that stirs their shallow graves carries their songs across the sands. Heed our words, hear our cry. The grey are sworn, in peace we lie. Heed our words, hear our cry. Our names recalled, we cannot die. When darkness comes and swallows light, heed our words, and we shall rise. From the Ballad of Islay, said to have been written after the Battle of Islay, which ended the 4th Blight, 520 Exalted. Culture and History. We have only one in here. Oh, no, we have two? No, we have one. History of Ferelden, Chapter 1. Ferelden, as we think of it now, did not exist before the Exalted Age. Instead, the valley was divided up into dozens of old Alamari clans. They warred constantly with one another over land, honor, the allegiance of the freeholders, and on one notable occasion, the name given to a favorite Mabari. And then, in 33rd year of the Exalted Age, Colin HOD Therian became Tiern of Denerim, and everything changed. Most of what we know about the founding of our nation comes from the old songs that the bards passed down through the ages. The songs are filled with wild exaggerations and outright lies, but this hardly differs from the scholarly papers of some of my contemporaries. There was no agreement among poets or scholars on how he did it, but Colin HOD gained the support of the Circle of the Magi, and they crafted for him a suit of silvery white armor that, by all accounts, repelled both arrow and blade. Colin HOD led his army across the valley and captured Redcliffe, one of the only 3 men who ever successfully laid siege to that fortress, and presented himself to the bonds of the Landsmeet as their king. The poets tell us that every lord knelt before Colin HOD without question. The fact that he attended the Landsmeet surrounded by ash warriors and loyal mages of the Circle is generally omitted from the ballads, however. From Colin HOD came the line of Therin, kings and queens who reigned uninterrupted until the 44th year of the Blessed Age, when the Orlesian invasion came. The rightful king was forced to flee Denerim, and for 70 years a puppet sat upon the throne. From Ferelden, Folklore and History, by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. Books and songs, we have 2 left. I'm not going to read these because these are chapter 2s. I'd like to read chapter 1s first, so we're going to hold off on that. Let's go to characters and see what information we have about Connor Girion. I feel like I'm sleeping, but I guess I'm not. So we read most of this already, but we see that he was freed from the demon's power at a terrible price. Wait, what? No, this is not true. The cost of his mother's life? No, the mom's still alive. Oh, we have a bug. Glitch. Ah, that sucks. Okay, well, whatever. Let's leave it there. We won't read that. Arredin Howl. This must be the guy that we've seen talking to Mock Loghain, the old gentleman who wanted him to hire the assassin. It appears it will be civil war after all, despite the Darkspawn. Pity. The Arling of Amarithian winds along the sinuous northeastern coast of Ferelden. The waking sea is known for its temper, and the storms that sweep in from the warmer northern wastes are sudden and brutal. These are the lands of Rendon Howl. He was born during the occupation, and like many of the nobles at the time, joined Prince Maric's rebels. He fought alongside young Bryce Cousland, future Tyrn of Highever, and Leonis Bryland, future Arl of Southreach, at the bloody Battle of White River. It was the most catastrophic defeat of the entire occupation, from which only 50 rebel soldiers escaped alive. Although he was decorated for valor by King Maric, Howl's abrasive manners have earned him almost universal dislike among his peers. Win? I will not lie motionless in bed, with coverlets up to my chin, waiting for death to claim me. Win's talent became apparent early on, particularly her skill at healing magic. She was well liked by all her mentors, and was recognized as an exceptionally gifted student. Even the Templars who watched her could not deny that she represented the best the Circle had to offer. She was an intelligent young woman who possessed a quiet confidence and maturity beyond her years. She spent many years mentoring apprentices within the Circle, and her peers thought so highly of her that she was asked to be First Enchanter Irving's successor, but she refused, saying that she had no desire to work in the upper echelons. When word reached the tower of King Kaelin's call to arms, Wynne volunteered to go to Ostagar. First Enchanter Irving. Although much of the Circle was destroyed by Uldred's abominations, Irving survived and plans to rebuild what he can. We have Logan Moktir. His actions sparked a civil war. Logain supporters found themselves fighting their neighbors who blamed Logain for the death of the king, as well as those who simply wished to take advantage of the power vacuum. Oh sure, we have opportunists and trolls. That makes sense. Liliana. There's more to Liliana than had even been apparent at Lothering, however. She spent much of her life as a bard in Orlais, a minstrel assassin and spy employed by the nobles of Val Royeaux in their elaborate games of intrigue. Arlessa Isolde. No, she did not give her life to free Connor from demonic influence. She is very much alive, unless the game is really glitched. Zevran Aranaye. The crows send their regards. Between the Tevinter Imperium, Rivian, and the Free Marches sits the nation of Antiva. Although it possesses few resources of its own, Antiva's location makes it a center for trade in the north, and the capital, Antiva City, is the wealthiest in the world. Antiva has virtually no army. The monarchy is too weak to support one. Most Antivans would be hard-pressed even to name the current king, as the true power lies in the hands of a dozen merchant princes, each with a personal army, and each locked in constant struggle for power against all the others. Anyone would think then that Antiva would be ripe target for invasion by one of her neighbors, but even the Quinari leave Antiva alone for one good reason. The House of Crows, the most efficient, feared, and expensive guild of assassins in the world, calls Antiva their home, and their reputation alone defends the borders. Wow, that sounds awesome. Okay, so we're done reading the lore, everybody. Wow, that was a whole hell of a lot. We have a few from the Mages Collective. Do we have anything left on the Circle of Magi? We have to summon the last thing back there. In fact, I'm tempted to go there next in order to do some exploring with Liliana, but that should be something I talk about not in the lore section. So everyone, thank you for listening. When you come back, in this playlist, we'll read more lore. You will hear from me then, and thank you for watching.